He's Thundarr, I'm E-Lightning, and welcome to Sports Storm.
Today we will be making our second NFL mock draft. We did this about a week ago, so let's get right into it. NFL mock draft 2.0. Who do you have the Tennessee Titans selecting with less than 30 days?
I'm selecting Laramie Tunsil out of Ole Miss. I mean, he's a good player. I mean, last time, because they still don't have an offensive line. Taylor Lewan is their only good one. You get two good tackles there to protect Marcus Mariota, as I stated in the previous video. That's a very potent combo. Well, I still feel like Jalen Smith and Jalen Ramsey are the two best players in the draft. I still feel like you got to go with an offensive lineman if you're Tennessee here, but I could see it going to the Jalen Ramsey way.
Yep, I still have Jalen Ramsey as my number one overall pick. Like I said earlier, or in the past video, he's a mix between Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor. I think he's the draft's best talent. He reminds me a lot of Charles Woodson, so that dual threat, can play corner and safety. Titans aren't strong at either position, so I think he'll be the leader of that defensive core as time rolls on. So on to the second overall pick, the Cleveland Garbage Browns. Who do you have them selecting in the 2016 mock draft?
I have them selecting Jared Goff. I didn't have him in my top 16, but I've been doing a lot of research recently, Jared Goff is not a bad player by any means. I feel like Cleveland could go a lot of ways here. I feel like they need to go quarterback, but I don't feel like Carson Wentz will get it done for them. I feel like they need a quarterback that can share the sugar, I think they need a strong arm. I don't think Carson Wentz has a strong enough arm for the Cleveland Browns offense. I mean, you want to have a deep threat, and I don't think that Carson Wentz can really air it out, and I think that's what you need to do if you're the Browns. So I think you can go a lot of ways here with Jalen Ramsey or DeForest Buckner or even Joey Bosa, but I just think it's got to be Jared Goff here.
I have Laramie Tunsil. A lot of people would expect Cleveland to draft a quarterback. Honestly, in my mind, this year is not the year to draft a quarterback because next year you still got Brad Kaya and Deshaun Watson in the draft. So I have been taking Laramie Tunsil out of Ole Miss. Didn't go number one overall in my draft, but I know they already have Joe Thomas, but I think even if you compare him at the right tackle, but it sounds like the Browns front office is having troubles with Joe Thomas as of now, so they might try to get rid of him, build an entire new start, get their next franchise starting offensive lineman in Laramie Tunsil. On to the third overall pick, the San Diego Chargers. Who do you have them selecting?
I have the Chargers selecting DeForest Buckner out of Oregon. Absolute monster with the measurables. I think somewhere around 6'7", 260 pounds. Absolute monster, wrecking ball. I think he'd be a great pick for the Chargers here. They don't get consistent pass rush from Corey Legent or Melvin Ingram. You really need a consistent every down pass rusher, and I think DeForest Buckner can be that. I think he just edges Joey Bosa for best pass rusher in the top 10. So I feel like you got to go with DeForest Buckner here, as they do have a decent offensive tackles, and you do have Phillip Rivers still, and receivers that can produce. So I feel like you got to go with the defensive line here.
I think you also need to go defense here, but I have been taking Miles Jack out of UCLA. Some teams are qualifying him as an inside linebacker or an outside linebacker, or some even as a safety. And the Chargers have been deeply looking into him, and I think with his good pro day, and I think just with his skill and potential, I think they take him at number 3. They don't need offensive line. They're not going to take Ronnie Stanley. And I think their main problem right now is defense. I can definitely agree with a Joey Bosa or DeForest Buckner, but in my mind, I think Miles Jack is the guy at this number 3 spot. On to the fourth overall pick, the Dallas Cowboys. Who do you have them taking?
I have been taking the best player in the draft, Jalen Ramsey. Obviously, Brandon Carr is not getting it done. Byron Jones still a rookie developing. I feel like, as you stated earlier, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, Charles Woodson are all valid comparisons for this great young man, Jalen Ramsey. I mean, obviously, he can be an all-pro, Pro Bowl, anything. The Dallas Cowboys desperately need this. I think the offense will be good next year, but without them drafting in defense and maybe making a trade on defense, they will not make the playoffs. I feel like this will be a huge step for them making the playoffs, getting the best player in the draft.
I've been taking defensive lineman Joey Bosa out of Ohio State. Some people consider him to be even a top 2 pick. I don't agree with that, but I do think he's a very, very talented defensive lineman. I just think he edges DeForest Buckner out because I think a lot of teams relate him to a J.J. Watt, so to speak, and they just see more potential out of Joey Bosa. And I think, like we said in the earlier video, Dallas likes to draft big names, and Joey Bosa is a bigger name than DeForest Buckner. in these kind of terms. So
but my mock draft, Jalen Ramsey's probably the biggest name you could possibly.
All right, on to the 5th overall pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Rebuilt quite a bit in free agency. Who do you have been taking at number 5?
So they are good, and everywhere. I think that offense, as you know, is really potent with Allen, with the two Allens, Hearns, and Robinson. You got Blake Bortles who can bomb it to them or short. Bullets, anything. If you got that defense that has Tayshaun Gibson, Dewey Simon, Malik Jackson, still got Ziggy Hood. You got all those playmakers everywhere on the. I think you just need an offensive line. That's why I've been selecting Ronnie Stanley out of Notre Dame. Good big tackle. I think he's the most polished offensive tackle in the draft. He doesn't have the highest potential, but I think in Jacksonville, if he grows, he can be your stalwart left tackle and an extremely potent, maybe even Super Bowl contending offense for in the next 3 years.
I also am taking Ronnie Stanley out of Notre Dame. Like you said, very, very polished offensive lineman. Not necessarily has as much potential as Laremy Tunsil, but I think on day one, he will be the better lineman for Jacksonville. Like you said, this Jacksonville offense is elite now. They got an amazing young core. Their only weakness on this entire team is their offensive line. I'm taking Ronnie Stanley out of Notre Dame. On the 6th overall pick, the Baltimore Ravens. Who do you have been taking?
I'm taking Joey Bosa, as you said, big name. With the uncertainty around Terrell Suggs, Elvis Dumerville's not getting any older. Chris Canty is spotty. Timmy Jernigan's there. So I think you really need to get a pass rusher here to restore that really awesome Baltimore defense. I mean, they have C.J. Mosley on the inside. He's a stalwart up in there. They still have Darius Webb, who's still, I think he's a good safety, not a great cornerback, but still a good safety. And I think for Baltimore, restoring the pass rush is the first step to getting back into the playoff race.
I have been taking DeForest Buckner out of Oregon. Like we said earlier, Joey Bosa and DeForest Buckner will be flipping multiple mock drafts up until draft day. So I think really Baltimore is looking for any kind of pass rusher, whether it be Joey Bosa or DeForest Buckner. But I think DeForest Buckner fits the Baltimore just kind of mindset better. I mean,
but Joe Bosa is still on my board and DeForest Buckner.
Yeah, but I mean, he totally fits the bill as a Baltimore Raven. I mean, he's 6'7", 260, like you said earlier. I mean, one of the hardest hitting prospects in the draft. I think he just fits the mindset. Great fit. They don't have Courtney Upshaw. Terrell Suggs isn't getting any older, as with Elvis Dumerville. So on the 7th overall pick, the San Francisco 49ers. Who do you have taking?
I'm thinking Carson Wentz. I feel like Carson Wentz is the better quarterback overall than Jared Goff, but as I said, he fits the West Coast offense of the 49ers a lot better than Jared Goff or Paxton Lynch at this point. Plus, even though they're not going to trade Kaepernick most likely, I still feel like you got to get Carson Wentz here because Colin Kaepernick is not the answer to the future that many thought he would be. I think he's gone after this season or next season, and you got to have a good quarterback that can go. I think Carson Wentz can be that future 49ers quarterback. I mean, he's got Torrey Smith there, and if they bring back Anquan Bolden, then that could be a weapon for him. I mean, obviously, the 49ers are starved on the offensive side of the ball, except for their offensive line, which is still pretty good with Joe Staley there.
Yes.
But I think Carson Wentz is the pick here.
I still have Carson Wentz as my top overall quarterback. The one thing is his quarterback class isn't as good as it has been in recent years, so I have him falling to number 7 at San Francisco. I mean, I believe that if Laremy Tunsil goes number 1 to Tennessee, I think Cleveland will jump and get reach to get him at number 2, because honestly, I don't believe any quarterback will be a franchise, not necessarily a franchise quarterback, but I just don't see.
I think this class isn't as NFL ready as recent classes. Yeah. But I still feel like this class is better than the 2014 class.
Yeah. All right. But I do have Carson Wentz. I think his top quarterback prospect in the draft had a wonderful pro day. So I wouldn't be
his combine numbers were also excellent.
Exactly. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him go number 2, but in my mock draft, he's still on the board because of Jalen Ramsey going number 1. If Tunsil doesn't get selected number 1, I think all the mock drafts are out of whack then. So just based on what happens in the number 1 pick really determines on where Carson Wentz goes. On to the 8th overall pick, the Philadelphia Eagles. Who do you have them taking?
I have them taking Ezekiel Elliott. Darren Sproles is good and Ryan Mackey, but I don't think they're consistent backs. I think the Eagles have done no propensity to use Darren Sproles as their every down back, even though I think Darren Sproles is capable. capable. That's why I feel like Ezekiel Elliott is big here. Ezekiel Elliott, extremely explosive. He's got a perfect blend of speed, power. As you already said, he could be. You compare him to Marshall Faulk. I mean, that's a pretty good comparison right there. Ezekiel Elliott I think, is a great player, and I think the Eagles would really need him because Ryan Matthews is kind of more of like Ezekiel Elliott is better than Ryan Matthews. I feel.
By far, yeah.
Exactly, and I feel like for that in this offense, you need some explosiveness in there. I mean, with Jordan Matthews' future uncertain.
Yeah. At number 8, I have Philadelphia taking Leonard Floyd, dual defensive lineman, outside linebacker out of Georgia. He's kind of been a recent riser in the last few weeks. I honestly believe Philadelphia traded basically everyone on their defense, and they need to build from where they are. I think they're set with their running backs for now. I do believe Ezekiel Elliott could even be an all-pro in his first year. I think he's that talented if he gets on the right team. I just don't necessarily see that Philadelphia is the right team. I'm thinking Leonard Floyd, elite pass rusher in this draft. I'm going to 9th overall pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who do you have them selecting?
I'm thinking Vernon Hargreaves. I think it's a little bit of a reach, but their only issue, they have Levante David and Quan Alexander who are good at the linebacker spots. Of course, Gerald McCoy is down there holding down the defensive line with some other playmakers. I feel like you got a good young offense, Mike Evans, Jameis Winston. I feel like the only hole he can really solve here is with the cornerbacks safety issue, and Vernon Hargreaves fits the billing here. 5'11", plays like a 6-footer. He's a good ball hawk. Guarded Amari Cooper. I think he's a good fit here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I mean, 5'11" is only 1 inch short.
Whatever. There's a difference between 5'11" and 6 foot, though.
Yeah, it's a milestone. All right. At number 9, I have Tampa Bay taking Noah Spence. Like you said, they have a good enough front seven, but really their only defensive lineman that is worthwhile is Gerald McCoy right now. So I'm thinking Noah Spence out of Western Kentucky. He originally was at Ohio State, then ended up transferring to Western Kentucky. Had an amazing year. Has risen up draft boards in the last few months ever since the combine. So I'm going at number 9. I do agree they have a need at corner, but I think it'd be too much of a reach to take Hargreaves at this point.
I don't think Hargreaves is too much of a reach, though. I think he's only like a 2-pick reach. I think you got to do that for your biggest hole.
All right, on to the 10th overall pick, the New York Football Giants. Who do you have them selecting at number 10?
I'm taking Miles Jack, as you said, could be a top 3 talent. The knee is like 85%. It'll be ready to go. This would be a dream pairing. As they solved the defensive line issue with Olivier Vernon in free agency, they still have JPP. That defensive line is good, and I think to complete that front seven, you kind of like they try to address the secondary a little bit with Norris Jenkins and stuff. But I think you got to go with Miles Jack here. He instantly helps their defense, makes their front seven a lot scarier. You can even move him back to safety if you feel that need. If you're Landon Collins is getting it done for you back there. So I think Miles Jack, extremely athletic and talented, would be a great fit for the Giants here, as he's still on my board.
Number 10, I have the Giants taking Jack Conklin. I know they addressed the defense quite a bit in free agency, getting Olivier Vernon and Norris Jenkins. They do have a weakness at linebacker. The one thing is Miles Jack started off my board, and I think it'd be too much to reach to take a guy like Darren Lee or Reggie Ragland at this point. I wouldn't be surprised to see them take him there, but I have them taking Jack Conklin. Like I said earlier, they have a very, very bad offensive line. I mean, Eli Manning has been one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the past few years.
He still hasn't missed a snap.
Yeah, I know. The one thing is, they need to protect Eli Manning if they expect to possibly win their division. Even though it's a bad division, they can.
I think the Giants have a chance, and with me for Miles Jack, I think the offensive line is an issue, but if you have a player as talented as Miles Jack on the board at this point, you can take him. And I feel like if they get Miles Jack, or even like what you said, a really good offensive lineman, I think that instantly ups their chances. The Eagles, I don't think are contending in that NFC East. I mean, the Cowboys, if they get Jalen Ramsey, could contend, but I really feel like it's the Giants and like the Redskins who will be battling for it.
All right, and number 11, the Chicago Bears. Who do you have them taking?
I've been taking Jalen Smith. I think the top 2 talent in this league, but obviously really good player. He hadn't had a torn ACL. He would obviously be a top 5, maybe even number 1 overall pick. I mean, Bears don't have a good front seven. They need a stalwart in the defense.
Number 11, I have Chicago taking Vernon Hargreaves. He's still on the board. They still got Fuller as their main corner. He looks sharp. He looks like he can lead that defense into the future. But I think they need a second corner. I think Vernon Hargreaves is the answer. They could take another defensive lineman. but I don't see any elite ones left on the board, so I've been taking Vernon Hargreaves out of Florida. At number 12, the New Orleans Saints. Who do you have been taking?
I've been taking a big bad Sean Robinson out of Alabama. Absolute tank up there. Obviously, really good player. Could be a defensive starter up there with Cameron Jordan. Their offense is in pieces with Brandon Cook and Drew Brees being the only good pieces. But I feel like Sean Robinson is big, mean, and fits the New Orleans Saints defense.
At number 12, I have New Orleans taking Michael Thomas out of Ohio State. I think he's the top receiver in this draft. A lot of people have Laquan Treadwell, but I think Michael Thomas has the physical attributes, and he did well at the combine, and he showed enough at Ohio State. I think he can be an NFL starter and become a star within the coming years, and that's what the Saints need. They don't necessarily have a star receiver that Drew Brees normally has. Most of those receivers from the Super Bowl team a few years ago are gone now, so they need to get a star receiver here. At number 13, the Miami Dolphins. Who do you have been taking?
I'm taking Leonard Floyd, like you said. They really don't have an outside linebacker, and as you said earlier, he's an absolute beast, has been rising. Colomisi, his native position, is not on the outside. And Philip Weaver he's like bad now, basically, and they really need an outside rusher or even coverage man. I think he fits the system very well.
I definitely could see him taking an outside linebacker like a Jalen Smith, but I see him taking Ezekiel Elliott. They lost Lamar Miller in free agency to the Texans. I think this would be a perfect fit for Ezekiel Elliott. Kind of do what Todd Gurley did last year. Fall a little bit in the draft, find a team that desperately needs a running back, and Ezekiel Elliott will then become the main point for that Miami offense. I think he can put up the numbers that Todd Gurley did last year. I think he will be by far one of the most. I think he could win Offensive Rookie of the Year in my mind. I'm going to be 14th overall pick, the Oakland Raiders. Who do you have selecting?
I have been taking Michael Thomas. Now, Amari Cooper is a great every play receiver. He's big, he's physical, and a little bit fast. But I really feel like you need an explosive, really explosive, deep threat receiver to go along. Derek Carr can bomb it. He proved at Fresno State he can do that. If you get him a play, like if Amari Cooper can distract defenders, imagine Michael Thomas going over the top, impressive combine. You can bomb it. That's going to be touchdown city for that offense if they get Michael Thomas here.
At number 14, I have Oakland taking Jalen Smith there. They have a very talented linebacker core with Khalil Mack and Bruce Irvin. The one thing they are lacking is an inside linebacker. And if they can get Jalen Smith at number 14, this will be an absolute steal. He won't play for her first rookie season, but I think they're going to be competing enough, and I think they're going to be in the playoffs in next season. So I think, and then the year after that, all of a sudden, you have Jalen Smith on your team. He's going to be fully recovered. He's going to be been training for an entire season. So I think this would be a great steal if Oakland can get him at 14. At number 15, the Los Angeles Rams. Who do you have selecting?
I have the Los Angeles Rams taking Laquan Treadwell, big physical receiver, really help that offense, give Case Keenum somebody to throw to. I think you could go Paxton Lynch here. I think he'd be a little bit of a reach. Laquan Treadwell, get the second best receiver in the draft. Big, physical. Kenny Britt's not getting it done for you. Obviously, the measurables, except for speed, are on point with Laquan Treadwell. Big hands, long arms, tall. That's everything you want from a number one receiver.
At number 15, I have Los Angeles taking Josh Doctson. I think he's the number 2 receiver. I have Laquan Treadwell at 3. So I think Josh Doctson, he has proved he can go grab those slightly off-thrown balls. I mean, he has amazing athleticism. He has great speed. He showed that at TCU. Trayvon Boykin wasn't necessarily the most accurate passer, but Josh Doctson made it look that way. So I think Josh Doctson, great fit for LA. I can also agree with the Laquan Treadwell pick here. At number 16, the final pick of this video, the Detroit Lions. Who do you have them taking?
I am taking Sheldon Rankins. They need somebody mean and big up front. Willie Nato was just not mean last year. I mean, he's big, but he's kind of just sitting there. Sheldon Rankins has a nose for the quarterback. He'll get after the running back. That's what the Lions need, just somebody to come in there and pop people. I think Sheldon Rankins really fits that. And the Lions' defense is good. Darius Slay back there. Isaac Bruce is developing. Tahir White, the linebacker, is still good. Tahir Whitehead is still pretty good. I mean, obviously Ezekiel Ansah is great along the edge. So I really feel like the inside is the way to go. And Sheldon Rankins is the best on the board, I think.
Yeah, I do also. The Lions really have 3 major needs, and that one, like you said, the inside nose tackle, defensive tackle. Another main need is offensive line. I wouldn't be surprised to see them get a guy like
Taylor Decker,
Jack Conklin if they fall to them, or and wide receiver. A guy like Laquan Treadwell, Josh Jackson, or Michael Thomas is there. I wouldn't be surprised to see them jump on. But I have been thinking A'Shawn Robinson out of Alabama, big brute up front. I mean, he proved that he can. I think he can replace Fairley and Sue, not on his own. I think I might need to get another guy eventually, maybe through a trade or even in next year's draft. But I think it's a good place to start. A'Shawn Robinson, pairing him up with Ezekiel Anza. That defensive line will be elite. All right. That is it for us today at Sports Farm. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.